the Fujifilm X-H1. This camera has had a bit of a strange history. It came out in March 2018 for $1,900, and though it was based on the popular X-T2's guts, it was Fuji's first camera with image stabilization and their first serious video shooter. It introduced log video and the popular Eterna profile, though both did end up coming to the older X-T2 in an update anyways. The X-H1 did at least still have twice the bitrate though, so the video quality was a bit nicer. The X-H1 was a bit of a shocker for many people. Fujifilm was known for their small, retro-styled bodies, and this was not that. But the bigger problem ended up being what would come just 1 month later. For only $100 more, the Sony a7 III launched and really changed everything. I mean, I'm no Sony shooter, but there is no denying that the a7 III really changed a lot of the photography and video landscape, really cementing Sony as this major player in the camera market. As if that wasn't enough, Fujifilm themselves had to kick the X-H1 down by releasing the X-T3 just 6 months later. It outspec'd the X-H1 in every way but image stabilization. It's now even considered Fuji's first real attempt at a video camera, despite the X-H1 supposedly having that title. The X-H1 would soon after drop in price to about 50% at $1,000 for the body, the battery grip, and extra batteries. That's definitely not a sign of good sales. But regardless of all that, the X-H1 was still my first serious camera. I've shot with it for about 1.5 years now, and it really is what helped launch both my photo and video careers, regardless of how small those actually are. And though, even from day one, this was not my dream camera, it still has gotten me through everything up until finally biting the dust last Christmas with a cracked sensor. So this is my story with the Fujifilm X-H1. I bought the X-H1 summer of 2018. I was in college on break at the time and delivering pizzas at Domino's in my Fiat Spider, working overtime and making a ridiculous amount of money, at least by my standards. I was delivering in Redmond, which is where all the Microsoft workers live, so it's a really well-off and dense area, which meant lots of orders and really good tips. That summer, I bought my X-H1 35mm 1.4, 56mm 1.2, 18 to 55 kit lens, and even a used 2012 top-end iMac for editing. Though everything but the camera was used, this was a huge upgrade from my XE2, adapted Nikon film lens, and Surface One laptop. I had been casually into photography for a couple years shooting with my XE2, but I really wanted to start taking things a little more serious in hopes that I could land some side jobs and even maybe make some revenue on YouTube doing what I enjoyed. Still haven't quite made it to that second part yet though. Now, when it comes to photos, I find I mainly shoot vertical. I'm not entirely sure why I'm drawn to shoot that way, but I think it's just most of my subjects tend to take more vertical space. This is a super underrated feature of the Fuji screens, but the way they pop out to the side like this is amazing. It's just nice to be able to get a clear, low shot like that. And overall, I love the photos I get from this camera. I mean, most of it does come from the excellent Fuji lenses, and obviously no gear is going to replace skill though. I'm also not super technical or pixel peeping, but I haven't really had any problems editing the raw files in Lightroom. I mean, once I got the hang of editing what I wanted, I've been really impressed with what I could pull off. Another thing with photos is I love low light and night shots. I just have always loved the way the darkness contrasts with bright, colorful lights. Like, you can really make subjects pop with the dark settings and the right lights. And that being said, the image stabilization in this camera is a godsend. I hate using tripods for photos. It's just too much extra stuff to carry around and set up for every shot. But with this, I can keep an ISO of 200 and shoot down to 1/3 of a second with my 35mm lens and still get clean, sharp shots. And anytime I use my 56mm on one of my bodies without stabilization, I always have to adjust to just how much shake there really is. I will admit, stabilization does not work at all for moving subjects in low light. I used to shoot a lot of house shows, and these are easily the hardest shoots I have. For those of you who don't know what a house show is, it's when a college band throws a concert in their living room or basement. It's crammed, sweaty, and the only lights are flashing party lights. You end up with the worst combination of it being dark and having fast movement. I didn't own a wide-angle lens either, so I'd just be pressed up against a wall or on the ground in between the crowd and the musicians, just trying to fit as much as I could into the frame. Every shot I took was just praying to work. It was dark, and they moved around so chaotically it was hard to get anything sharp, but when it did come out, it was amazing. So yeah, stabilization definitely helps in low light, but with slower shutter speeds, you're still not going to be able to capture any movement. These shows are actually what got me into video originally. Even when I took them on my old camera, the XE2, the bands would often ask me to record some footage. And I enjoyed it so much I wanted to start doing more of my own video. If you dig to my earliest videos on this channel, you'll actually see that 3 of my first 5 posts are actually promos for bands around here. 2 of them were shot on the XE2 and are pretty bad. But the one shot on the X-H1, though I definitely could do better today, I was really impressed with how it came out at the time, especially considering I shot it all myself in one show, just freeballing it all handheld. As a video camera, this does just about everything I need. It's got 4K, Eterna, log, and a decent bitrate. The image stabilization is okay video-wise. Sometimes it's pretty good, other times it's a bit jerky and will jump, either while holding still or panning. Definitely better than nothing, but could be better. Everyone seems to complain that there's no headphone jack, but honestly for me, as someone who almost only shoots themselves in a bedroom, I wouldn't really be able to monitor my audio anyways. There is an HDMI out, which I run to an external monitor when I need it. I really wish the screen would just flip out because it's a pain to use a second monitor, but I do love the tilt screen for everything else. The face detect autofocus can also be a little spotty at times. It's mostly fine, but occasionally will lose me if I move around. I'm using the 35mm 1.4, which I hear is a bad video lens. I have tweaked the sensitivity and the speed settings to find a balance that keeps things fairly smoothed out though. So yeah, not perfect, but it does all get the job done one way or the other. And the image coming out is great. I mean, it's about all I need video quality wise. And that's how I feel about the X-H1 on the surface. Gets the job done for everything I need with just a couple minor downsides like no flip screen and okay stabilization in video. But I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this was and still isn't my perfect dream camera. See, when I bought it, I was very torn between this and the cheaper X-T2. I love the retro look and feel of Fuji's other cameras. They may just be tools, so it shouldn't matter what they look like, and everyone will have a different opinion on this, but I think as a tool that's used to create art, the look and feel of a camera is important. Now, is it the most important thing? No, I mean, there's a reason I don't shoot my film cameras. I mean, they look and feel better, but they simply just can't do what I need them to do, and that's kind of what happened here. At the time, I wanted the X-T2, but I needed the X-H1. I love that other Fuji cameras are smaller, lighter, stylish, feel good, and simply just get me excited to bring with me everywhere I go and shoot with. I mean, even if you don't believe that kind of stuff, the X-H1 is still bigger and bulkier and heavier to bring around. I prefer to keep things simple and small. The smaller and easier it is to bring everywhere, the more I can use it. I rarely go out specifically to just take photos. I more just like to bring my camera with me whenever I'm out. The X-T2 was smaller and more what I wanted, but it simply did not have the image stabilization that I needed. Plus, the X-H1's video was just that much better. The extra size, though unwanted, gave me functionality that I needed as a main camera, so I reluctantly bought the X-H1 in the end. Now, you may be wondering, why didn't I buy something like the Sony a7 III if I was already compromising what it was I loved about Fujifilm? I mean, I would have just got more functionality out of the Sony. Well, it's because at the time, Fujifilm did not have my perfect camera, but I knew, or at least hoped, that one day they would, so my lenses wouldn't go to waste. And now that the Fujifilm X-T4 is about to release, it is my perfect camera. It has the smaller body, retro style, flip screen, better image stabilization, and on top of all that, it has even better video and a bigger battery than the X-H1. I haven't tried it yet since it's not out, but I do admittedly have some concerns. Though I want a flip screen, I will miss how quick and sly the tilt screen is. For photos, having to flip it out to the side then rotate it around just seems kind of clunky, especially when you're just trying to get that one quick candid. Like, using the viewfinder feels more pro and cool and whatever, but having a low tilting screen is just way less show-offy when you're trying to photograph moments. I hate when people change what they're doing or pose because they know you're taking a photo. I mean, I'm sure I'll get used to the flip screen, and it is the natural trade-off to have it flip forward for video, but I'll just have to see when I use it. Plus, just the idea of being able to cut out the need for an external monitor and cutting out how much gear I have to worry about is a huge bonus for me. I also bought a used X-T30 to use in between my X-H1 breaking and the release of the X-T4, and man, I love the size of this thing. I almost don't want to get rid of it. I can see it being too small for some people, but this is just perfect for me. It's similar to my X-E2, so small and easy to carry around. The X-T4 is obviously bigger than this, which is unfortunate, but it's not so much bigger that it's a big deal, honestly. But back to the X-H1. Though it was never a camera I fully connected with, it still gave me everything I needed to get where I am today. It always impressed me with the images coming out of it, and it did what I needed. It's funny, I would always complain about my camera, just wishing for the day that something like the X-T4 would get announced, and with the timing of when my camera broke, it was only 1 month later that my dream camera got rumored, and then another month before it finally got announced. Though there are people that prefer the X-H1 to something like the X-T line, I always felt like the X-H1 was just an experiment, just something to test out and lay the groundwork for future cameras where it's finally refined. And even for me, it was always a temporary camera for until that day came. 1.5 years of shooting on this, and I definitely have taken some photos that are important breakthroughs of progress for me. I've taken photos that have gotten me paid, and I've taken photos that capture important moments of my life. Will I miss the X-H1? Admittedly, probably not. I remember when I sold my X-E2 to help buy this, I ended up buying another X-E2 just because I missed it so much, but I don't feel like this is the same case. I'll always respect and remember the X-H1 as a start, but in the end, it was just a start. A start that led to bigger and greater things.